All right, here we go on a Thursday night. Back at our DC and the Sunshine Man podcast. So we'll take a look at a little NFL, mostly college football tonight. See what's going on with Dave, as we got a college football to go recap tonight, and also unbelievable, the Bengals almost. Well, they did scare the hell out of people. I'm sure a lot of people tried to put them in their teaser, and we're real nervous. And that's what we talked about all week. We talked about it all week. Like, do you have the balls to actually put this team in a teaser play? And I think a lot of people did. So they made out. We'll see if they get the back end or whatever, the next two legs of their teaser. So, Dave, before we get to the NFL game, man, when I saw that line the other day, Miami, what was it, 5.5? And then we find out, and De'Ara King was already questionable, but we saw on the sideline. I didn't, what was it, 3.5 when the game went off? I was like, I kind of think Virginia's live.
Yeah, well, we talked about this game this morning on the Wager Talk Today show that I do on Thursdays, and I just assumed King wasn't playing. Yeah. Everything I'd heard was that he can't play. So the thought was Van Dyke or maybe Garcia, and it was Van Dyke. And he did a pretty good job. He's a much more conventional passer than King is. King's a run pass option guy, and he's certainly not all the way back from his torn ACL. It takes guys a long time to recover from that. He's just really banged up. And Van Dyke, more of a drop back passer, and he was effective in the second half, particularly against the Virginia defense that's not very good. But Virginia escapes with the win because Manny Diaz decided to freeze his own kicker. I don't have a real problem with them not trying to score the touchdown because you don't want Virginia to get the football back, and I understand that. But have the play ready to go and just send them out there and kick the damn thing. Don't take a timeout to grab an extra second or two off the clock. Just don't do that. Not with a freshman. It's in the NFL. Okay, those are guys. Every NFL kicker has been in big game situations, going back to their college days. Freshman kicker, no, clanks it off the goalpost. Virginia wins. That's on Manny Diaz. Just don't do it. You just don't do that. We saw two things that you just don't do tonight, and it ultimately, I think, probably cost teams wins. Miami freezes their kicker, and this drives me absolutely nuts. I just don't understand it. Tom Brady's like 80, okay? But if the Bucs, or previously the Patriots, have a goal-to-go situation at the 1-yard line, Brady, who isn't exactly the most athletic guy on the planet at this point, never was, he is able to jump, take the ball under center, leap, and score the touchdown. Drew Brees, who's 5'2", did it for like 30 years. Okay? 4th and goal at the 1. You've got a 6'6" athletic quarterback, and you're playing from a shotgun. Why? The Bengals didn't do that. When the Bengals got down in a goal line situation, they had Burrow right under center. And you can run a variety of plays there. I like the quarterback sneak, but if you want to hand the ball off, that's fine. But at least you're handing it off, basically at the line of scrimmage. To do so, the shotgun snap to me in that situation is just plain stupid. There's no other word for it. Stupid. And I think it probably cost Jacksonville the game. There's a good chance they go up 21-0 with that score. Instead, they get held. Bengals get the ball out of the second half kickoff, score immediately, and it, to me, changed the whole game. So that's on Urban Meyer. That's stupid. Anybody disagree?
He's trying to learn. He's trying to learn the game, my friend. Learn on the job for whatever he's making, $4 million a year.
I just don't. I never understand that call. Really, in any 4th and 1 situation, why are you operating out of a shotgun when you need a yard or less? If you can't just line up under center and trust your offensive line to get you a yard, then your offensive line must suck. And you're telling them, by the way, you're telling them you have no confidence in them.
Real quick, I'm telling everyone to the other links that we're on right now, because I think so. We've enabled Twitter with these videos, so the video is better. But for some reason, Twitter and StreamYard haven't worked things out so that comments pop up.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any comments.
Yeah, so
there I'm seeing one.
Well, because he's on YouTube.
Ah.
Go everyone else, because we have a bunch of people, and I know the easiest place to watch it is Twitter, but the Twitter comments aren't coming through. So, especially tonight, since it's interactive and you guys always want to ask about games, if you can, jump over to Twitch or to Facebook, ESPN Las Vegas, or probably the best one is YouTube. And yeah, because like, let me turn down the volume. Yeah, because I could sit here on the phone and read the comments, but that would be kind of silly. So if you can jump over, whatever you want to do. Otherwise, we'll kind of go through the games, and then if we don't get to some games, we don't get to some games. So
all right, and I won't see the comments because I'm on StreamYard. So outside of Cameron's comment, which I agree with, I'm not seeing anybody else's.
Oh boy! All right, I'll read them as I see them until people come over, but. Off topic. Yes, we can.
Yes, Adam, I can see you.
We can see you. Yes, can you see me? Dang. Someone was just asking, when do you start getting into hockey betting?
When the regular season starts. I don't bother with exhibition hockey, but I am. And it doesn't matter if you tell me the score because I don't care what the score is. I did tape the Kings Golden Knights game tonight, and I'll watch that later on just to watch the combinations and just see if I can learn anything. But whereas I will bet some exhibition football games, and I don't bet as many of them as I used to because coaches aren't giving away game plan information anymore. They're basically not game planning anymore. I don't bother with the NHL. By the way, NHL.
Anytime there's a by the way and a pause. Here we go.
The NFL did away with overtime completely in exhibition games. Game's over. In baseball, technically you can play 10 innings, but I don't know that there's ever been a 10-inning exhibition game because the managers just agree after 9 innings, we've had enough. In the NHL, they play overtimes and shootouts in the exhibition season in games that don't count. Now, all I can tell you is this. Maybe coaches have changed, but I doubt it. I grew up around an American Hockey League team. Most of the time when I was in school, when I was supposed to be in school, I was at Rhode Island Reds practice. It was more fun than school. And I can tell you every coach I've ever known, every hockey coach, that was a professional league, it was an AHL league. They hated exhibition games. Total pain in the ass. They got more out of practice than they did out of exhibition games. Plus, you don't want to give away anything in an exhibition game. You don't want the other team seeing your line combinations and stuff like that. They have to play the games because they got to play the games. But to have overtime and shootouts, to me, is just ludicrous.
NHL.
But anyway, it starts in a couple of weeks. I have not yet arrived at any conclusive predictions for the season. I am a little worried the Golden Knights could take a little step backwards this year.
Why?
Well, for one thing, and I know he wasn't great in the playoffs, and he's getting on in years, but Fleury has been an unbelievable regular season goalie for them. And they're going to miss him. And I think they're going to miss him on and off the ice. And that's not a knock on Lehner, who I think will do a fine job. But he's not a Hall of Famer. Fleury is. And Fleury is, I honestly believe Mark Stone might be the captain, but I think Fleury has been the real captain of the Golden Knights for their 3 years of existence. And I think they're really going to miss him. And some of the other guys are a year older than they used to be. I think they're still going to be a quality team, but at least my early impressions looking at their roster are they're not quite at the same level they've been. But they'll still be good. And who knows? Maybe this year they won't go into the playoffs with as high of expectations, and that might be a good thing for them because I think this is fair to say. I think the pressure wasn't on them in the Colorado series. They were underdogs in that series and performed really well. But there was a lot of pressure on them against the Canadians because basically Hockey World said this is an easy series for the Golden Knights. They're in the finals. Didn't work out very well. So sometimes high expectations can be a burden. Maybe they won't have as high of expectations this time around.
All right. Yeah, I agree with you. I think Fleury's going to be a big loss, and everyone not everyone, some people just kind of bursting that off. Like the transition is going to be immediate to Leonard are wrong, and we'll see what happens with the new backup or if the guy's playing 35 games this year. I don't know. I was trying to make bets with everyone about Leonard and his game load, and no one would push it to like 57, 60 games. So
I don't think it will be. I think they'll wear him out if they do that, and I think they're going to have to. Do we even know for sure who the backup's going to be? Because it looks like there's a little bit of a battle going on. But I do think it's important, even more so now, because Fleury, I mean, the guy, he could go 60 games every year, it seemed. I think they're going to need a quality backup goaltender this year.
All right, let's start with the college football slate. There's actually some good games tomorrow as we get back into Friday football. Big Ten, Iowa's 3 against Maryland on the road.
Ooh, excuse me. Dodgers just went up 3. I have the Dodgers minus 1.5. Iowa and Maryland, this is where we find out what Maryland's all about.
Yep.
This is going to be a different defense than Tagliavoa has faced. He's looked good, but he's had pretty easy reads in his first few games, and he won't have them here against a complex Iowa defense. Now, the Iowa offense is shaky. They've got a game manager at best in Petrus at quarterback, and I think that's being generous. He's really not very good. You'd think Iowa would at some point get a, I'm not going to go off on a tangent. Anyway, I think Iowa beats them. I'm not convinced though that I can lay the points in the game. Maryland, remember when Loxley was rightfully, I believe, ridiculed when he was at New Mexico. Wasn't very good.
Yep.
He surrounded himself with excellent assistants, and he's simply a better head coach. I sometimes the first time around as a head coach, he got those learning pains. He's doing a lot better job. Now, granted, he's got better talent.
Yeah,
he's also playing better competition, and there's more pressure at Maryland. That's an athletic department that spends a lot of money, and he's doing a nice job with this team.
Yeah, he's always been a good recruiter. Recruiting to New Mexico with their budget, recruiting to Maryland, 2 different ball games. And let's be honest. I mean, you just mentioned Iowa. Could Iowa compete to go unbeaten this year? Probably with a better quarterback. They're still going to be very good. But you know how much of a difference the quarterback makes, Dave. I mean, you could talk about 2 or 3 wins in college football, and the younger Tagovailoa might actually be the best quarterback in the Big Ten. Now, it's like, hey, how the hell did he land at Maryland? Well, he was at Alabama, and obviously Loxley was there. So they landed in his, Tagovailoa landed in their laps. So the difference with him on that team is gigantic.
Yeah, and the issue on Iowa is so far so good, but what happens if they fall behind? Because if you're going to ask this guy to pass you back in the game, probably not going to happen. So I don't think Iowa's going unbeaten. I think they're a team that will be in every game because their defense really is outstanding. But somebody's going to get them along the lines, or along the way, I should say.
I would say that about BYU. Is this the game? It's another, might not be the holy war, but it's damn close. Utah State and BYU, well, especially Utah State is not getting along with BYU, and they're getting out here.
No, Logan's going to be hopping tomorrow night. That's a big game for them. And look, Utah State's done a nice job so far. Blake Anderson has been a massive upgrade. This guy can coach. We knew that at Arkansas State, and he's moved up a little bit in terms of the level, and he's doing an excellent job. And if you watch the game against BYU, they weren't bad. They kind of beat themselves in that game. I thought the final score was very misleading. Not BYU, Boise. Excuse me. They played Boise last week, and it was a misleading score. BYU, there's been some good and some bad. Now, they get a little bit of a pass last week because I do think Romney he's okay, but the other kid's better. Hall's better, and Hall will be back on the field tomorrow. But there's still a few things you can look at from BYU's 3-0 start in Pac-12 play. They're the favorites to win the Pac-12 right now, even though they're not in that conference. They weren't great against Arizona, and we know Arizona's really bad. They weren't great last week against South Florida. I'll give them a pass because it was a flat spot, a big flat spot, coming off the 3 Pac-12 games. But I think maybe people are getting a little – they may have underrated BYU coming in, because they'd lost Wilson, and the thought was, well, and they'd lost some other key guys, and the thought was, well, that they're not going to be as good as they were last year. I think after winning 3 straight against Pac-12 opposition, they might have gotten overrated a little bit. I think they're a decent team, but I don't think they're quite what some of the talking heads nationally are making them out to be. I think Utah State's going to give them a game tomorrow. I'm looking forward to watching that. I think it's going to be a very highly charged atmosphere in Logan. I've only been to Logan once. I was there for a college basketball game many years ago, and that is a hostile. It was a hostile location. That was basketball.
Yeah,
they're going to be really fired up for this football game tomorrow night. It's a huge game for Utah State. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, they have a nice football stadium. They get pretty good crowds out there, and obviously BYU will bring plenty of fans as well. I say bring, they're there. Ricky had a question about the Mountain West and AAC and Air Force and Colorado State potentially moving on. Will MWC become the WAC eventually? I do think the Mountain West Conference is going to add schools. It's just a matter of who to make a run at. Did you happen to see? I don't remember who wrote it. I think Jeff Grammer might have retweeted it. That there are some rumblings that there are some unhappy schools in the conference right now with Craig Thompson. They've lost faith in him. I'm not saying this to be smug, but I lost faith in him like 20 years ago. I think Craig's a really nice guy. I mean, we had a lot of dealings with him when we were doing the show together, and he really is a nice guy. But I've never been a big fan of some of his decision making in the Mountain West, and I think they need to make a change. The conference is in trouble. It's in trouble. Okay, I mean, you've got eventually San Diego State's going to go someplace. So will Boise.
Then what?
So will Boise.
And so will Boise. Yes, Boise as well.
Apparently Boise and San Diego State in the last couple of days told the AAC to buzz off because they're like, we're not making a lateral move.
That's a lateral move.
We want Pac-12 or Big 12. We're just going to wait.
Yeah, and I think to me, the Pac-12, from a business standpoint, they're being silly not bringing in San Diego State. It's a huge market with no pro sports team now. Yeah. They've got the Padres. That's it. They don't have a basketball team. They don't have a hockey team. And the NFL team is playing in L.A., at least until the Spanoses don't own the team anymore.
Right.
At which time they might get a stadium and move back to San Diego. I think that'll happen sometime in the next 15 years. But to me, San Diego State's basically their second franchise other than the Padres, and they are extremely well supported.
Yep. New football stadium on the way.
Bring them in.
Yeah.
Bring them in. That's a moneymaker for the league. And it's a good school, too.
Craig Thompson needs to be proactive, strengthen the conference, certainly get backups in case Boise and San Diego State leave, but stop being reactive and waiting and waiting and waiting. And, the only thing he said publicly that we've heard is like, well, that would be a bad move for them to leave. Well, that's great. That's your opinion, but come on, bro. And the other thing is he
said that about TCU as well.
Exactly. If he's at the head of the table negotiating TV deals, their TV deals stink. And the AAC was, a developing conference, and the AAC gets more money.
Actually, and I was wrong on the quote. I'm not. I sometimes I don't remember things as quickly as I can. Apparently, the issue might be more with CBS Sports. They're not happy with the direction of the Mountain West. That's the carrier of their games. That's their prime carrier.
Right.
They need CBS Sports. If CBS Sports says, you know what, we can't make the dollars with you that we can make with somebody else. That's a problem.
Do you have any schools in mind?
As to coming into the Mountain West?
Yeah, to add to the Mountain West.
No, not really.
There's been talk of trying to pluck an SMU, a Rice to get into Texas.
Rice. Who cares about? I'm no offense. It's a great school. It's a great university. But Rice in sports, you really don't want them in your league. What next? You want to bring in New Mexico State too?
You could try going east and make a run at Memphis. You could make a run again just in basketball at Gonzaga. I think the other intriguing school is North Dakota State because they've got a great football tradition.
They do.
They actually have a better following, and I think about the same amount of money as Colorado State. Losing CSU sucks, but they don't really have the Denver market. And the funny thing is, they have a lot of money behind them, but they got this brand new stadium. No one goes to the games.
No. Now, part of that is Colorado State's fault. They keep hiring the wrong coach.
Yep.
Sorry, but there's a lot of good, talented people out there, and you've gone from Mike Bobo and Steve Addazio back to back. Why?
Yep.
So sometimes it's the athletic department that doesn't know what it's doing, quite frankly. Because if they asked, and I don't mean to sound like us sports bettors or we sports bettors know it all, but we follow this stuff very closely, especially the full-time bettors. You'd have a hard time if you surveyed 100 full-time cappers and odds, and not just cappers, but odds makers as well, and asked them what they thought collectively of Mike Bobo and Steve Addazio as head coach. I'm going to say maybe 10% would say, yeah, they're pretty good. The others wouldn't, and Addazio was a shocker to me when they hired him. It's like, really? He practically got run out of Boston College. He was not well liked by, and this is, it's secondhand information because I don't live there anymore. But basically what I was told was the players couldn't stand him, and neither could anybody in the city. The media didn't like him, and more importantly, the boosters didn't like him. And you do need to satisfy boosters. And if that sounds like, hey, wait, what are you going to, because they drive the program in many cases with their contributions. All you have to do is ask UNLV. Look at the phenomenal changes that have taken place on campus in terms of the improvements that are now there for the athletic department. That's because of boosters.
Right.
And they've done a great job. And by the way, to me, might not happen yet, but I definitely think that the next AD should be someone who going in has a vision of UNLV getting to either the Big 12 or the Pac-12. And that should be a prime motivation. Look, UNLV's improved itself academically. It now is, as far as and I might be wrong on this, but I believe it now is a research school. And that is a requirement in the Pac-12. Well, they've got that. And the Las Vegas market is outstanding. I know the football program has sucked forever, but that can change. And I still think that you don't sell UNLV as much as you sell the idea of your conference gets to have a presence in Las Vegas, which is the big event capital of the United States. And it is, by the way. We still are. There's basically no city that surpasses us. They might equal us, but nobody surpasses us in terms of big event. And we're going to have the Super Bowl will be here soon enough. The NBA already does stuff here. The NHL, the NFL is bringing their draft here next year, which is one of their biggest things. And it's going to be here. Las Vegas is a great get to me. Sell the idea of Las Vegas to the Pac-12 or the Big 12, preferably the Pac-12.
The funny thing is on the list of Colorado State candidates, there was a guy, Tony Alford, who played at Colorado State. He played running back there. He's coached for 24 years as an assistant. His last two stops have been split between Notre Dame and Ohio State, and he was on the list, and they snubbed one of their own to bring in this jackass from the East Coast. So get what you deserve,
Yeah. So, and they're not very good, and they've gotten worse since he arrived.
Saturday games, you fired up to lay 5.5 now, Florida State, Syracuse?
No, I'm not playing Florida State. I made that mistake 2 weeks ago. My number's not very good on Florida State because they keep on coming up as the play, and I did use them a couple weeks ago and got my ass handed to me against Wake Forest. Was smart enough not to play them last week against Louisville, and I will be smart enough not to play them here. But this is a team, at least on paper, they're supposed to match up well with, because Syracuse can't throw the ball. And Florida State is equipped to stop the run. So it's really a game they're supposed to win, but I don't trust them to do so.
Hey, again, a reminder, everyone over on Twitter, we actually can't see your comments as they come through. Like, I'm looking on my phone, I see a couple of them, but we don't get them right now because they can reconfigured StreamYard and Twitter differently somehow going from Periscope, so we can't see your comments. So if you want to jump over to YouTube, all those YouTube comments are coming through, ESPN Las Vegas on Facebook or I guess I could put my Twitch. Twitch is just basically twitch.tv Cofield Radio.
Couldn't
So
they come up with a better name than that?
Twitch?
Can't stand that name.
I don't know.
Sounds like a nervous affliction.
Indiana, Penn State. Penn State 12.5.
So most of the games this year, I'm not really factoring in revenge because 2020 was just such a bizarre season. It's kind of like, all right. But this game, I think it matters. Penn State just blew the game last year to Indiana. They absolutely killed the Hoosiers in that game. And James Franklin mismanaged the end of the game with his play calling and clock management. End up in overtime, and they lose by 1, 36-35. And they absolutely killed Indiana in that game. So I think the revenge factor is meaningful there. Penn State's really playing well. They're a legit top 10 team. Indiana, Penix is not. Look, he's not even a year removed, I don't think, from the ACL, and he's just not playing well. It's a tough spot. Plus, it's going to be crazy there. It's a stripe out night. They had a whiteout a couple weeks ago. Now they've got a stripe out. That's right, Adam. What that is you, depending on where you're seating, where your seat is, you're either going to wear white or blue. So it'll have a stripe effect, and it's going to be over 100,000 people. It's going to look great on TV, and I think Penn State's got a chance to clobber them in this game. The line got a little away from, and I'm a stickler for my numbers and for value. So I think the value is kind of gone, but I don't want any part of Indiana. I think it's Penn State or pass.
Darren says the background can't be my house, is it? No, it's my boardroom. I just got that fixed up. So,
I can attest to that.
I'm with Dustin DeHart, and, we've put more money into the house with the money taken out of the house.
Nice job.
With the refi. So, Wake Forest, they're good. They're good.
Yeah, they're not bad.
7 against Louisville.
Yeah, now they do have to face a run-pass option quarterback here. And Cunningham is starting to look good again. He was struggling a bit. And then it looks like he's pretty healthy now. And he looks good. So we'll see how Wake Forest handles that. But the confidence level of the Demon Deacons is probably the highest it's been in several years. Clausen said coming into this season he thought it was his best team. And he wasn't blowing smoke. I mean, they're a solid squad. I think there's still a couple of teams in the ACC that they're not going to be able to compete with because they're just going to get out-athleted. But I don't think I want to get in their way right now. But that is a little bit of a high number. I would be more – it's not a game I'm close to betting. But I'd be more inclined to take than lay in that game. I think it could be one of the better games of the day.
Back to the Big Ten. This game was minus 39 last year. It's minus 15 now. Ohio State at Rutgers.
Well, Rutgers, the score was a bit misleading last week. They were getting knocked around pretty good in that game. But, they showed a lot of fight. And Ohio State, down a bit, but still a real good program. Mm-hmm. And very well coached. Like Ohio State needs a really good game here, but I don't think Rutgers is a pushover at this point. Schiano's got them playing good football. He's a good coach. And hopefully Rutgers hangs on to him because he's going to get the program better every year. I think Rutgers gives them a test. But I'm not convinced they can stay within the spread for 60 minutes.
Right. Is Boise 6 points better than Reno?
I don't know. I don't know. Nevada had a good second half against California, came back and won that game. They didn't play well against Kansas State. Didn't play well at all. Got run out. They basically got run out in that game. And their running game just isn't there. I don't know what the problem is because I think the running game personnel is okay. And I think their offensive line is okay, but it just isn't performing the way I thought it would. I do think they can compete with Boise. Boise's a little bit one-dimensional this year. Their running game just isn't very good. And they're having to throw too much. But it's still, it's still a good home field. And and it's a huge game for both teams as far as the conference race is concerned. An uncomfortable lean to Boise. Nevada's got to show me more than they've shown so far. The game against Cal just doesn't mean much because I don't think Cal is all that good.
Cincinnati 2 at Notre Dame.
Not a chance in the world I'll bet it. I don't have an idea. I think the situation favors Cincinnati. That's the one thing I can give you is that the scheduling dynamics definitely point to Cincinnati here. That might be enough to get them through. Notre Dame's and again, Notre Dame, very misleading score last week against Wisconsin. They got a lot of points late in that game. But this is the season for Cincinnati. Bearcats win this, they're going to be unbeaten and yelling about getting into a playoff. Whether they get in or not doesn't matter. They'll be yelling about it. So this is their season, and the Irish are coming off a war with Wisconsin, and it was a big war. I mean, that was a real battle. Again, much closer than the final score indicates. If I had to take it, I think I might take Cincinnati, but thankfully I don't have to make a bet on the game.
Alabama, Ole Miss. A lot of hype about this game, and Ole Miss is scoring. I'm
excited.
I'm thinking about taking Alabama first half. Am I crazy?
No. But Ole Miss looks like they might be the real deal. And this is the Heisman game for Corral, I should say. If he has a big game here and Mississippi pulls the upset, which is not impossible, he moves onto the front runners list as far as the Heisman goes. I mean, Kiffin's got this offense humming. They're really good. And they're going to be a test for Alabama. This is not yet one of Saban's greatest teams, but they're still great. And that's the one thing that scares me off the game is Alabama, even though they're young and the quarterback is young, and that's his name too. But they know how to win these games. I mean, who's better than Saban in big games? Basically nobody. So I think Ole Miss has a really good chance to compete. I don't disagree at all with the line movement that took place in this game because there was a lot of heavy action, sharp action on Ole Miss early that drove the number down. But I think it's too late to take Ole Miss now with the point spread where it is. So if I had to bet the game now, I'd go Alabama. But Ole Miss is good enough to keep me away from that. And I hope it's a great game, by the way. This is a game I want to watch, and I hope it's a 40-38 type of thing that goes down to the last minute. That'll be fun.
Is Baylor growing on you? Kind of medium level expectations. They're only getting 3.5 at Oklahoma State. Yeah,
a little bit. And it's turning out that losing Charlie Brewer wasn't such a bad thing for them. So Baylor's got a shot here. They got a lot of momentum. Oklahoma State's not a real good football team this year. I can see Baylor plus the points. I think there's better options out there because of the fact that Baylor won last week impressively against Iowa State. It kind of sucked the value out of this because this line would have been, 2 or 3 points higher than it is now. So you're kind of paying a premium to take Baylor, but I wouldn't be surprised if they go in and win.
Georgia laying 18, too much against Arkansas?
No, I don't think so. This Georgia team could be the best team in the country. They're playing like it. I'm not wild about Daniels. I think he's slightly overrated, but the team sure isn't. They are loaded on both sides of the ball. And Arkansas has been very impressive so far, particularly on the defensive side. But you're not going to run on this Georgia team, and I don't think the quarterback's good enough passer to beat them through the air. He's a run-pass guy, but he's a run-first quarterback, and I think Georgia's going to shut him down, and Jefferson will make some mistakes in this game. I think Arkansas might get whacked here.
Florida 7 at Kentucky.
Tough game. Kentucky is very good against the run. Legitimately good against the run. And if you make Florida pass the ball, you might be able to do something against them. That's not their forte. I mean, Florida certainly looked great against Alabama. But I wouldn't sleep on Kentucky. They're a pretty good football team. I think there's a live shot at an upset here with the Wildcats.
You ready to lay 12 with Oklahoma at Kansas State? Oklahoma seems to be just scuffling in every game.
Nope. I'm going to have to see a complete 60-minute game. And Kansas State is one of the better home fields in the country. Doesn't get mentioned with some of the real gigantic places.
Right.
But Kansas State is a 6 on my home field. That's as high as it gets.
Really?
So they're right there with some of the real big schools. It's not an easy trip to go to Manhattan, and it's hostile. And when Kansas State's good, which they were for a lot of years under Snyder, and they seem to be heading back in that direction under this coach. It's a shame they lost Skylar Thompson again to another injury. He just can't stay healthy. But they're a pretty good football team, and I think Kansas State's going to give Oklahoma a real good battle in this game. Sooners are not; they're just not putting it together for a full 60 minutes, and you got to do that in a tough atmosphere like this. They've had troubles here before. They could have them again tomorrow. Or on Saturday, at least.
Chris, is that your cat? I mean, that looks like a wild cat. Look at that thing. It's a rough customer.
That is, I forget his name. That's Butch. Butch passed away recently, and he was Chris's favorite.
No.
Yeah. I followed the exploits of Butch on Chris's Facebook page, which is Cat Daddy. Yeah, and if you have the wherewithal to Butch, yeah, see, I remembered his name, Chris. If you have the wherewithal to donate funds or food, because Chris takes care of a lot of cats who needs homes.
I didn't know.
Better yet, if you can, if you have space in your house and would like a companion, Chris will pick the right one out for you. You can select the right one yourself, and you'll be doing two great things. One will be great for yourself because you'll have a great pet, and the other is you'll be making the burden on Chris a little bit easier because he has to take care of a lot of cats. So follow Chris on Facebook at Cat Daddy because he posts there all the time. A lot of followers and lots of good stories. And who knows, maybe you'll get involved and it'll be good karma for you. I know my little guy's bringing good karma to me.
When are you ready for a second cat, Dave?
No, he doesn't like other cats. I was told that when I was adopting him. He likes people, people very much. He is not fond of other cats. So he's going to be the only cat as long as he's here, which will hopefully be for several more years.
We've got 3, and I'm not sure that any of them are fond of other cats either at times. So
some are.
They've been some aren't. They were getting along for a while. They've been a bit petulant lately. So.
Ooh. Well, they're territorial. So
they are territorial. They've all got their areas of the house, and then sometimes when they cross paths, it gets a little bit ugly. And the other thing is, stop vomiting, everybody! My God,
really? Well, that's not good.
They're just it's just nonstop.
That's not good. You got to get that checked.
Yeah. All right, Michigan off of that Rutgers game where they didn't look real impressive in the trenches in the second half. I talked to Brad Powers today, and Brad was saying, "Hey, you know what? Rutgers kind of solved Michigan for everyone else. Get 9 in the box and make Cade McNamara throw the ball." He said the guy had no air yards. He had 140. His most effective passes were 4 passes for 140 yards, but the air yards were 36. Make them move out of the run and force them to freaking throw. And Wisconsin here's laying 2.
Yep. And the problem is, and since we're on cable, I'll state it bluntly, the worry is the Wisconsin quarterback will fuck things up. He has been awful. His analytics are among the worst of any starting quarterback in college football. And that includes some of the quarterbacks at bad schools. He has been brutal. He's cost them 2 games. They beat Penn State, and I think they beat Notre Dame. But for his blunders. And it's impacting their play calling because Chris can't have any confidence in him at this point. I don't know if the team has any confidence in him at this point. They might be saying all the right things, but it's kind of like this. If your chauffeur has had 3 accidents in the last 12 months, you might say publicly, he's still a good driver. I trust him. But the fact is you probably really don't want to get in the car with him, and you wish you had someone to replace him as the chauffeur. I think Wisconsin wishes they had somebody to replace Mertz at quarterback. So I can't be comfortable with Wisconsin because of that. I think they're better than Michigan, but I can't trust them to win the game. But I'm not betting Michigan. McNamara, I agree with Brad. Brad Powers, by the way, is a great guest for you. The guy's as sharp as it gets. And his newsletter is awesome. Just the amount of information in that newsletter is incredible. I would never undertake something like that. Ever.
Well, he
oh my God, that's so much work.
For the longest time, he was one of the research guys, along with Ralph Michaels.
Yes.
For Phil Steele. So, and I honestly, I don't know how Phil's doing in terms of picking games. I'm guessing Phil probably misses both of them.
I think Phil's doing all right, but it's
a lot of legwork.
I mean, Ralph's incredible on his information. We're lucky to have him at Wager Talk. He provides just a mountain of free information every week. And I see Brad's newsletter. Sorry, Brad, I don't buy it. I get it sent to me free. He pays to have connections, but it's good. And I'm not looking for the select. I make my own plays. I don't care about that. But just the information that Brad has in there. I don't even know what the newsletter costs, but you should buy it. It's going to make you money, whether you follow the picks or not. Just following the information that he provides, it's going to save you a ton of work, and it's going to make you a better informed bettor. And if you're better informed, you're probably going to win more games.
Hometown team, UNLV. I think a lot of people saw UTSA on the schedule. Like, it's a winnable game.
Yeah, well,
3 touchdown dog.
Yeah, and now as of a couple of days ago, maybe you could update me on this. I've already bet the game, so at this point it doesn't matter to me. I bet UTSA on Sunday night, with the thought being, gee, I'm not sure if Brumfield's going to be able to play here, and the drop off to Friel is pretty significant. Actually, I think it's probably 5 to 6 points.
I agree.
Friel is just not ready yet. His reads are really slow. Brumfield is better than I thought he was going to be. Yep. I know that on Tuesday, Friel was taking all the first-team reps. I haven't gotten an update since then, but that was enough to convince me. It's like, okay, I feel pretty good about this bet. If Friel's out there, coupled with the fact that UNLV played their hearts out last week against Fresno State and came up a little bit short, I think it's going to be tough for them going cross-country. Now, UTSA is off a big win themselves. They came back from a 21-0 deficit, and they could overlook this game because they've got a bigger game next week, so it's a little bit of a sandwich. But they're the way more talented team. And this could be a bad game for the Rebels, particularly if it's Friel. What have you heard anything new?
So I was out there Tuesday, and Brumfield didn't practice. He was just kind of walking around. He still looks a bit ginger. Arroyo told us last night on his radio show that Doug didn't practice on Wednesday. So I would say 50-50 at best. That doesn't mean he's not going to play, but Iowa State's a lot better than UTSA, we think. He did say that week if Brumfield wasn't 100% for Iowa State, he wasn't going to risk him long term. And they are 0-4 now, and Brumfield does give him a much better chance. So I think there's, like I said, I think it's 50-50, but I would not be shocked if 1, Friel is the starter. 2, I don't know that he can play, but on Monday, Arroyo told us that Martell could be back this week at practice, but he's dealing with plantar fasciitis.
Yeah.
So he was trending more towards being out, giving him the bye week. But then on Wednesday, Martell was out there actually throwing and had the boot off. So I don't know what that says about Brumfield or what it says.
You know what? Maybe give Mart, if he can go, give him some action. Let's see what it can happen. Here's the way I look at it, and I know this is going to sound like you're saying this because you're rooting for your bet to win. Well, I am. But the reality is they're probably not going to win this game anyway. San Antonio's the Roadrunners. They're a pretty good Conference USA team, and they're playing very well. UNLV's got to find ways to win a couple of conference games, and there are a couple of opportunities coming down the road. I want Brumfield healthy for those games because he's clearly the best quarterback on this roster. It's not close. To me, you take a shot with Friel and hand the ball off to Williams and see what he can do. He's a great running back, and hope the defense comes to play, and maybe he can stay in the game. But to me, if you lose this game by 40, it really doesn't matter. They're probably not going to. They're just probably not going to win anyway. So I want the focus on the games they can win, and they've got a bye week coming up.
Yep.
So,
and then
let's look 2 weeks down the road.
Then Utah State here.
And that's not an unwinnable game. As good as much as Utah State has improved, I think catching Utah State here, I think the Rebels might have a shot in that football game.
Other injury notes: Kyle Williams, their best receiver, got pulled right before the game. He's got a hamstring issue. He got pulled right before the game against Fresno, and he didn't practice on Tuesday. That one's kind of touch and go. And I'll say Charles Williams is not who I'm talking about, but they may be without another weapon on offense on Saturday. So beyond Kyle Williams.
Williams, by the way, he was just great last week at Fresno. What a player he is.
Ridiculous. I know.
He is sensational.
They should be so thankful that Charles stayed around, because Charles easily could have gone somewhere before last year and been part of a really good program. Maybe he'd be, 1A and 1B. He might, he wouldn't be at a bigger school. He might not be the guy, but he'd have a chance to win. That was one of those games I felt really bad for him. It's his hometown team. Yep. They didn't recruit him. He freaking trashed them.
Oh, boy, did he ever. He was great.
Almighty.
Do you think he can play on Sundays? I think he's got a chance to play at the next level. Maybe not as a regular, but I think he can make a roster.
I think he's undersized. I mean, you see that. He's more like 5'9" and 200 pounds. But
special teams, I wouldn't mind having. That's a dangerous guy with space on as a punt returner or something like that. I think there's a place for him in the NFL. I hope so too, because I don't know him, but he seems like a great kid, real team guy, and I'd love to see him getting a chance to play in the National Football League.
Yeah, Carl says Wisconsin could have used him. A lot of schools could have used him. And you know what? I'm probably underestimating him. He might have been a lead back at the right spot in Power 5.
Wouldn't surprise me. He's just got skills.
He's good, and
he can catch the ball too. I mean, he's the type of running back that he can carry a team, particularly at this level. I wouldn't argue against him being literally the best player in the Mountain West Conference.
Last couple of games. I know DTR is a question for UCLA.
Yeah.
They're laying 3 against Arizona State.
Yeah. Yeah, but talk about a guy with heart. He just won't come out of the game. I mean, last week he's sitting there, basically he's got one arm. And it's like, and he missed a play maybe. And then he's back out on the field. Boy, has he turned out to be a leader. And so banged up or not, he's going to be out there. UCLA's playing good defense. They're up against a pretty good quarterback here, but Arizona State hasn't really put it together so far this year. Let's see if they do here. Great game. I can't bet it because I really don't know how significant the injury status is for DTR. I know he's going to try and play. I'm absolutely certain of that. But listen, one hit and he could be gone. And then the drop-off is huge. I don't know what to do with the game. I think it's an under. If I had to play the game, I'd bet under.
You going to play the late game with Fresno and Hawaii in Hawaii 11? What do you think?
I think Fresno's coach had no problem getting a team's attention this week.
Actually, kind of a break.
They were pretty bad last week.
This was going to be the look-ahead spot. This was going to be the letdown spot.
Yeah, they had a massive letdown.
They did
against Fresno, against UNLV. They were terrible in the first half of that game. Yeah. That does not bode well for Hawaii. I think Fresno State's going to be all business in this game, and they're just too good for the Rainbows.
I'll say, watching all these games in person, that Jake Haener was the most impressive guy in person of all the quarterbacks I faced.
And he wasn't even close to where he was
in
the UCLA game. He was just astonishing in the fourth quarter of that game.
Yep.
I imagine every NFL scout was watching that game and saying, let's move him up the list a little bit.
I mean, the only thing against him is he's small. He's only 6 feet tall, but he can throw it, man. He can throw everything.
He is a guy who looks to me to be one of those guys who's going to have a 15-year backup career in the NFL. He'll bounce around. He'll be on a bunch of teams. He'll be good enough to make a lot of rosters. Not good enough to be a starter, and the size will work against him, but certainly good enough to be a roster, be rostered in the NFL.
Right.
And he's got that it factor, the leadership skills. I mean, that was phenomenal what he did against UCLA. I don't think you'll see a better performance in the fourth quarter by any quarterback this year, and he did it hurt. I mean, I thought he had broken ribs, to be honest with you.
It was a hip.
Yeah, it turned out to be a hip.
Yeah. LSU Auburn.
Oh, look. Auburn needs to commit to the run in this game. We're going to run the football, and you're going to have to stop us. Their coach doesn't always do that, and I don't want to put the game in the hands of Bo Nix. If they have a balanced attack, I think LSU beats them. If they go run heavy, like 3-1 ratio, I think they'll eventually wear down LSU and get a win.
NFL, real quick. You got anything you like? Anything you're leaning towards? Anything your guys have told you?
Yeah.
Hey, this is what we like. What do you like?
Well, I mentioned the ugliest one of all.
Yeah.
Nobody wants the Steelers this week. So I think I'll take them. There are some things that point to them for me. Now, one of those is not the way they've played. They have sucked so far. They were lucky to beat Buffalo, and they've been bad the last 2 weeks. Big Ben looks like he's 80. The offensive line is not performing well. Defense is still good, but their offense is bad. It does look like they got Watt back, and that's really big on defense. He was full practice on Thursday, so that's a very positive sign. He's a huge difference maker on defense. But what I like here, and I'm not a sharp square guy or a pros versus Joes guy, but there are times when it's like, wait a minute. If you have, and this is a plug for Wager Talk, they have a setup with Don Best, and Don Best has always been the cream of the crop as far as line service is concerned, and their odds screen. So they have a free odds service at Wager Talk. If you just go to wagertalk.com and click on live odds, you've basically got the Don Best feed. And included in that, for all the books that they're listing, now they don't list every book, but there's a lot of books. The Vegas books, I think DraftKings is on there, Pinnacle's on there, Heritage is on there. You get ticket percentages.
Look at that number. Holy cow.
Ticket percentages and money at the respective books. Yeah. And it's basically a 9-1 ticket edge right now on Green Bay, and close to that with the money.
Yeah.
And they didn't even move the line to 7.
Exactly. It's
still 6.5. You know, that's the old line reader in me. Yep. That's like they're begging you to bet. They're saying, here you go, free money on Green Bay. Come and get it. I took the 6.5 with the Steelers. I will say this. I don't think the Steelers are as bad as they've played the last 2 weeks. I don't think the Packers are as great as they've looked the last 2 weeks. I made the line 4, so I still wouldn't have played it unless it fit on my numbers. I think Green Bay deserves to be favored, but I think it's a competitive game, and I went for the 6.5 and took Pittsburgh. I think the Bucs are too good for the Patriots, and I think Tom Brady might be motivated for this game.
Yeah,
and they played a bad game last week. So that one is interesting. And the difference, D-Walk, is that line isn't 6.5. It's a little tougher to lay it. Yeah, because now you got to get 2 scores to win that game. Okay. So that's a key number. And the Patriots, look, I mean, Patriots are not a terrible football team.
Right.
But I think Tampa might have too much for them. What was the other game I was looking at?
The other one, if you were going on ticket count, the other one that's crazy, believe it or not, is 8-1 in terms of tickets and cash, is the Lions. So I bet the Bears today at 3. I know there's a lot of tumult going on
you might have some value there.
Yeah.
Because the look-ahead line in that game, Westgate puts up look-ahead lines a week early.
Yeah.
Look-ahead line in that game was 6.
All right.
So is there a 3-point adjustment from last week? I was on the Browns. Doing well in the NFL so far. My college has been spotty, but my NFL's been really good so far. And I loved the Browns last week. And it played out played out even more dominating than I thought it would. I thought Fields was going to have a really tough time against a very good defense that would disguise its coverage and confuse the shit out of him. And they did. The Lions defense isn't nearly that good. And he got a game under his belt. He'll be better this week. He's not going to be shell-shocked out of last week. Where's my NFL stuff? Because there's something else that I was attracted to, and I can't. I'm just blanking on the game. So if I look down my list, I'll spot it. The Giants are interesting. Yep. The only thing that's scary, the scary thing to me is New Orleans finally playing a home game, right, which I think they'll be excited about. But the Giants are not as bad as their 0-3 indicates, or are they 1-2?
They're 0-3.
Yeah, 0-3. But they've been competitive. And I think they might be able to compete here. Geez, how did I forget this? Why can't the Raiders go in and beat the Chargers?
They can.
I think the game's pick 'em.
Because of?
I think they're just as good as the Chargers.
Yeah.
And I don't see much of a home field advantage. I only give the Chargers 1.5 for their home field. I think you're going to see close to a 50-50 crowd on Monday night. A lot of Las Vegans that I know, Raiders ticket holders. Oh, we're going. We bought tickets. They buy it from the Charger fans,
right?
And I think it won't be as dramatic as the Dallas game was, because that was basically a home game for Dallas in Los Angeles. But I think this is going to be pretty close to a 50-50 crowd. And boy, I mean, the Raiders, they're a confident bunch right now, and with good reason. And the Chargers, doesn't matter who the coach is, they still find a way to do things weird in the last 2 minutes. They almost lost that game last week to Kansas City. And the fact is, I thought the Chiefs probably should have won the game. I thought the Chargers were maybe a little bit fortunate there. So to me, I mean, I got no problem taking 3.
All right. Josh Jacobs, I don't think is back. He practiced a little bit today, but then Carr talked about it. He's like, I don't know what he can do.
Limited.
Yeah.
And me, by the way, Carr.
And honestly, Dave, they can afford after Peyton Barber busted out, and Kenyon Drake is their joker, their receiver out of the backfield. They need to be careful with Josh Jacobs and get him healthy.
Yeah. I'm taking credit for Derek Carr's MVP level play so far, because prior to the season, it was like, yeah, he's okay, but boy, if you can swing some kind of a deal, give up whatever you can, whatever you have to get Aaron Rodgers, because Derek Carr's been really good. So I'm taking the credit for that. I motivated the guy. No, this is the best he's ever been. And sometimes quarterbacks, it takes them some years to really hit that peak level where they're in total control. But Carr looks like he's just owning the football field right now. It's a really good quarterback matchup on Monday night with him and the sensational young Herbert. It's going to be a fun game.
Yeah, this is about the age, maybe a couple years older, that Rich Gannon started to hit his stride. So,
Carr's true.
Carr's just past 30, so it does happen.
Yeah, his next 5 years might be his best 5 years. I'm super impressed. And, I know it's only 3 games in, but I think Las Vegas Raiders fans have every reason to be truly optimistic about this team being a playoff team. And all you got to do is get into the party, and anything can happen at that point.
Yep. WagerTalk.com is where to go for all of Dave's videos and selections. Remember, we're at the Westgate. It'll actually be the Adams, Adam Candy and Adam Hill. Westgate every week, 8 a.m. with John Murray. Get you the final second line changes and see where the sharps and squares are. And that'll do it, Dave. Good job. I'll talk to you early next week, okay?
Sounds good. Have a good weekend, everybody.
Yeah, thanks for watching.